Claire Donovan didn't belong in lobbies like this. The walls of Atlas Tech's headquarters rose 3 stories tall, glass gleaming against Seattle's wet skyline. Marble floors stretched so wide they seemed to echo the sound of every insecurity. The rain hadn't stopped since dawn. Now, it soaked through the thin hem of Claire's second-hand slacks, the ones she had ironed on a motel nightstand that morning while her daughter, Rosie, still slept. Rosie, 4 years old, in her blue thrifted coat, bunny backpack snug on her shoulders, held tight to her hand, watching the elevators blink like some kind of magic. Claire clutched her resume folder like it was armor. It wasn't, but it was all she had. "Ma'am, is she with you?" The receptionist didn't look up from her screen. Claire gave a small smile. "Yes, my daughter. Just for today." The sitter, a click of heels cut her off. "You brought a child to a corporate interview?" The voice came crisp and cold. Leanne Foster, head of administration, slim, severe, and dressed in steel gray. She didn't ask. She accused. Claire straightened. "I had no other choice." Leanne folded her arms. "We are a Fortune 500 company, Ms. Donovan, Claire Donovan. We screen for professionals, not babysitters." Rosie's grip tightened. Her wide brown eyes searched Claire's face for reassurance. Claire bent slightly and brushed a strand of hair behind her daughter's ear. "I'm qualified," she said softly. "I have the portfolio, the certification, the training. All of it's in here." She tapped the manila folder. Leanne exhaled, glancing at the receptionist as if confirming this circus wasn't a prank. Then Rosie shifted. Her backpack brushed the reception desk just hard enough to knock over a branded water bottle. It rolled once, twice, and then tipped, spilling a small puddle across the polished marble floor. The silence hit like thunder. Claire dropped to her knees, pulled a tissue from her bag, and began blotting the mess. Her hands moved fast, practiced from years of cleaning spills in diners, stores, and crowded waiting rooms. She whispered, "It's okay, baby. It's okay." Even as her cheeks burned and the tile chilled her knees, Leanne didn't move. "This is beyond unprofessional," she muttered, more to the room than to Claire. "I'm sorry," Claire said quickly. "She didn't mean to." "No one means to," Leanne snapped. "But standards matter." The elevator behind them chimed. All heads turned. Miles Carter stepped out like he was part of the building, tall, tailored, sharp-eyed, walking with the kind of stillness that made other people adjust their posture. Even Claire had read his name in articles. Atlas Tech's co-founder, a man they called Seattle's Steel Ghost, in a feature once visible everywhere, connected to everyone, but personally known by no one. His eyes swept the lobby. He saw the woman kneeling with tissues, the child clutching her hand, the manager standing over them. He paused. Leanne cleared her throat. "Mr. Carter, I apologize. We were just—" "What's your name?" he asked. Not to Leanne, to Claire. She looked up, blinking. "Claire Donovan." Miles glanced at Rosie, then back at Claire. "Are you here for the admin position?" Claire nodded. Her voice caught. "Yes, sir. I saw the listing and applied last week." Miles motioned toward the waiting area without hesitation. "Come with me." Leanne blinked. "Sir, we can reschedule." "I'd like to speak with her now," he said. Then, gently to Claire, "Please." Claire rose slowly, brushing water from her knees. Rosie slipped her hand into hers again. Miles waited until they sat him across from her, elbows on his knees, giving her space, but not distance. "Take a breath," he said. "You came, you're here, that matters." Claire swallowed. Her voice still trembled, but steadied. I didn't want to miss the chance, even if things aren't perfect right now. Miles nodded. Tell me why now? Claire glanced at Rosie. Because we can't afford to wait anymore. And just like that, the room shifted. Miles studied her, not as an employer might scan a resume, but the way someone listens when they realize they're hearing the beginning of something they won't forget. I lost my husband 2 years ago, Claire said, her hands smoothing Rosie's coat. It was fast, sudden. He was on a motorcycle. One night, one curve, and then... Her voice broke, just once. She continued. We were living in Spokane then. I had just started a certificate program. I thought I'd finally found a way forward. And then it was just me and Rosie. She kissed her daughter's forehead gently. I've cleaned floors, served coffee, worked 2 shifts in a single day. I've stayed up learning spreadsheets after she fell asleep in motel beds. Claire met his gaze now. I came today because I won't let bad timing be the reason I miss building a real life. For a moment, no one said anything. Miles turned toward Rosie. She was quiet, still holding the corner of her bunny backpack, eyes wide but calm. He offered a tiny smile. You did good today, he said to her. Rosie looked at her mom, then nodded shyly. I have a daughter, he said quietly. She's older now, lives with her mom in San Diego. Claire didn't respond. She wasn't sure she needed to. Then Miles looked at her, fully. The kind of look that says, I see you. You brought your child to an interview, he said, and you still showed up on time, with materials and composure and clarity. Claire's eyes stung. We can reschedule if that's what you'd prefer, he offered. No, she said quickly. No, please, I'm ready now. Miles leaned back, considering. Then he stood. I'll have HR draw up a 2-week trial. You'll report to Leanne. If it works out, we'll talk next steps. Claire blinked. Wait, are you serious? I'm rarely anything else, he said. Start Monday. There's an on-site daycare. We'll make sure Rosie has a place. Rosie beamed. Does it have story time? Miles smiled again. Small but real. I'll make sure it does. Claire stood slowly, the folder still clutched to her chest, as if afraid it might all fall apart, but it didn't. As she turned toward the elevators, Rosie tugged her arm. Mommy, she whispered. He didn't get mad. Claire looked down at her and smiled, voice barely more than a breath. No, baby, he saw us. And somehow, that felt like the beginning. If you enjoyed this video, comment 1 to let me know. If not, comment 2. Your thought mattered to me either way. Claire stood in front of the glass doors of Atlas Tech on Monday morning, her reflection slightly blurred by the drizzle. Rosie's tiny hand was in hers, gripping tight, the bunny backpack swaying behind her with every bounce. Are we late? Rosie asked, craning her neck to look up. Claire glanced at her watch. 7:58 a.m. No, baby, she whispered. We're right on time. Inside, the lobby buzzed with quiet urgency. Suits moved like shadows. Keycards beeped. Coffee cups steamed. It was a world that seemed to hum just a few inches above where Claire stood. And today, she had to catch up. A woman from HR, Marla, greeted her with a polite smile and a daycare badge clipped to her belt. Claire Donovan? Yes. Great. Rosie will be in Little Stars just down the hall. We've got a spot set up for her. Claire bent to Rosie's level. Remember, I'll be just upstairs, okay? You'll color and play and maybe even make a friend. Rosie looked uncertain. She twisted the bunny ear on her zipper. Claire touched her cheek. And I'll come get you before snack time, just to peek in. Deal? Rosie nodded slowly. Claire stood. Letting go felt like losing part of her anchor. Marla led Rosie away, and just like that, she was gone. Claire turned. The elevator doors opened. Her reflection met her eyes again in the chrome surface, this time alone. A second later, she stepped inside and pressed Floor 9, Admin Support. As the elevator climbed, so did her nerves. The doors opened to a long corridor of glass walls, open desks, and framed startup awards. Everything felt too quiet, too polished, too unlike her. "Claire," a voice called sharply. "You're early." Leanne Foster stood by her desk, clutching a steaming mug and not smiling. Claire approached. "Yes, ma'am. I just dropped Rosie off downstairs." Leanne's eyes flicked to Claire's modest blouse, her polished but worn shoes, her plain leather bag. "Come on," Leanne said, turning without another word. Claire followed. The walk to her desk felt longer than it was. Every step echoed. Every whisper from behind computer monitors felt like it had her name folded inside. "You'll sit here," Leanne said, pointing to a corner workspace, small but clean. A fresh notebook, a starter laptop, and a laminated handbook waited for her. "You're assisting me directly. Copy room requests, calendar syncing, vendor files, staff onboarding prep. I expect everything before deadline. You'll find I don't do grace periods." Claire nodded. "Understood." "Good. Start with the orientation slides and internal contact sheet. I want a summary of any discrepancies in the data by 11. She walked away without waiting for an answer. Claire exhaled. Her first morning stretched like a tightrope: email logins, system verifications, badge setup. She moved carefully, no wasted clicks, no wasted breath. At 10:03, Jenna Moore stopped at her desk. "New girl?" Claire looked up. Jenna was early 42nds, warm-eyed, her curly hair piled into a bun that probably took 10 seconds and still looked effortless. "Yes, Claire." "Jenna," she said, handing over a sticky note. "My extension. If Leanne starts breathing fire, call me. I keep marshmallows." Claire blinked. Jenna grinned. "Kidding. Sort of. You're doing fine." Claire smiled for the first time all morning. By noon, she'd sorted the contact sheet, flagged 3 errors, and printed a clean copy for Leanne's review. She slid it onto her manager's desk just as Leanne returned from a meeting. Leanne barely looked at it. "Leave it." Claire hesitated. "Is there anything else you'd like prioritized this afternoon?" Leanne finally looked up. "Yes." "Don't try so hard. It makes people nervous." Claire blinked. You're not permanent yet," Leanne said, standing. "It's just a trial. Stay in your lane, do your tasks, and don't make waves." Then she walked away. Claire stood there, still holding her pen. The ceiling lights buzzed faintly above her. She returned to her desk in silence. That afternoon, she passed Miles Carter in the elevator. He was talking to someone in legal, eyes scanning a set of documents. He didn't notice her. Claire didn't expect him to. She was just the girl from the lobby, a 2-week file on HR's desk. By 3, she snuck down to the daycare center during her break. Through the window, she saw Rosie coloring quietly at a table, head bent, a row of markers lined up like soldiers. Claire smiled. Relief came in small doses now. She returned to her desk just as Jenna dropped a file beside her. "Leanne wants this scanned and sent to procurement before 4. Claire looked up. Did she say why? Jenna gave a half shrug. She doesn't say. She expects. Claire nodded and turned to the scanner. By the time 5 o'clock rolled around, the office began to shift. Coffee mugs emptied, monitors dimmed, bags zipped, but Claire remained, cleaning up her files, double-checking the logs. She couldn't afford to leave anything undone. As she reached for her notebook, a soft voice spoke. "You don't have to overcompensate, you know." She turned. Miles stood near the doorway, one hand in his pocket, his tie slightly loosened. Claire blinked. "Excuse me? You're the only one still at your desk," he said, "and you've been typing non-stop since 2. "I'm just making sure everything's done," Claire replied. "I don't want to waste the opportunity." Miles leaned slightly on the doorframe. "You didn't waste it. You earned it." She looked at him, really looked, and for a second, the lobby came back. The spilled water, Rosie's eyes, his quiet decision to sit. "I thought you forgot who I was," she said softly. "I didn't." Silence stretched between them. It wasn't awkward. It was full. Claire's voice cracked a little when she finally spoke again. "I'm not used to being seen, not without judgment right after." Miles's face didn't change, but his eyes did. Just slightly. "I built this company to solve problems," he said, "but I think I stopped seeing people somewhere along the way." Claire didn't answer. He straightened. "You don't have to prove yourself every second, Claire. Just do the job. The rest will follow." She nodded slowly. "Thank you." He gave her a small nod, turned, and disappeared down the hall. She sat back in her chair, heart still beating faster than she wanted. Outside the window, the rain began again, soft, steady, familiar. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but for the first time in a long time, she wasn't afraid to find out. Claire never fully relaxed at Atlas Tech. Even on day 4, when she had memorized the printer codes and Leanne hadn't snapped before noon, she still felt it, that faint pulse under her skin, the one that whispered, "Don't mess this up." It beat in the background while she updated spreadsheets, responded to requests with perfect punctuation, and packed snacks into Rosie's lunchbox at 6:15 a.m. Like it was ritual. Because it was. Routine was the only thing that kept everything from falling apart. She arrived early again that Thursday. The rain had taken a break, and the city shimmered in the soft blue of a dry morning. That felt like luck. She held on to it, like it meant something. Inside, the floor was unusually quiet. Leanne was in a meeting. Jenna waved from across the room and mouthed, "Coffee later?" Claire nodded. Small things mattered here. Kindness, even in a whisper, echoed louder than most words. At 9:17 a.m., her inbox pinged with a calendar invite. One-on-one review, Miles Carter, 11 a.m. Rooftop lounge. Claire stared at it. No note, no subject line. Just him. She reread it twice before clicking accept. At 10:55, she checked her reflection in the hallway mirror. Hair still smooth, blouse tucked in, eyes tired, but present. The rooftop lounge was quiet, lined with pale furniture and a skyline view that belonged in magazines. A small herb garden framed the patio edge. Claire spotted Miles at the far end, leaning over a table with a cup of something dark in his hand. He turned when he heard her. "You came early," he said. "I was afraid of being late." He motioned to the seat across from him. She Saturday. For a moment, nothing but the sound of seagulls in the distance. The city pulsed below, but up here, it felt like a different world. Miles studied her face. Not rudely, just directly. "How's it going so far?" Claire hesitated. "I'm learning fast. I hope that's showing." "It is." He sipped his coffee. "And Rosie? She likes the center. She says her teacher smells like peaches and she made a best friend named Jude who eats too many crackers." Miles smiled. Claire let herself smile too, but then the smile faded. "Why am I here, Mr. Carter?" Miles set the mug down. "Because you're not invisible, Claire, and I don't like silence being mistaken for indifference." Claire looked down at her hands. "Leanne doesn't exactly encourage conversation. She's excellent at her job," he said carefully. "But her empathy filter could use an upgrade." Claire breathed out through her nose. "That's one way to put it. I'm not asking for gossip," he said. "But I need to know if you're being set up to fail." Claire looked at him. Really looked. "I'm not," she said. "Not yet. But I don't think I'm supposed to succeed either. I think if I do, it's a fluke. If I don't, it's expected." Miles nodded slowly. "That tracks." She folded her hands tighter in her lap. "This job, it's not a stepping stone for me. It's the stone. There's nothing after this if it doesn't work. I came to Seattle with $42 and a 4-year-old. He didn't flinch. I'm not asking for pity. I need to matter. Not just in my daughter's life, but here. Somewhere." Miles looked away, out at the skyline. His voice was quieter now. "When I started this company, I thought it would make me feel worthy." Claire blinked. He continued, "My dad was an engineer. My mom ran a bakery. We had enough, but not much. They taught me to work, not to feel." She said nothing. He glanced back at her. "I've made every decision since then trying to be someone who couldn't be dismissed. Someone untouchable. But lately, I can't tell if I've built a tower or a prison." Claire tilted her head. "That sounds lonely." "It is." They sat in it, the honesty, the stillness. Then Claire asked, gently, "Why did you defend me?" "That day in the lobby, you didn't have to." Miles looked down at the table. "Because everyone else looked away." Silence. "And then, Claire," he said slowly, "you walked in holding your child's hand and your dignity like they weighed the same. And I knew that wasn't the first time you'd had to." Her throat tightened. Before she could respond, the door to the rooftop opened. Leanne stepped out, startled to see them. "Oh, apologies. I wasn't aware this space was reserved." Miles stood smoothly. "It's not. Just to check in." Leanne's eyes flicked to Claire. Claire stood as well, spine straight. "We're done." Miles looked at her, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes. "We'll talk again, soon." Claire nodded and walked past Leanne without a word. Back at her desk, the air felt different. Jenna dropped by 10 minutes later and leaned against her cubicle wall. "He called you up?" Claire nodded, barely. Jenna lowered her voice. "That means something. He doesn't call up people for no reason." "I know. Just be careful." Claire turned. "Why?" "Because visibility's a double-edged sword," Jenna said. "People notice, and not everyone wants to see someone like us win." Claire nodded, quietly. Later that night, after Rosie was asleep and Claire sat alone with a lukewarm cup of tea in her tiny studio apartment, she opened her laptop and stared at the blank screen of her journal document. She typed, "Today, someone looked at me like I belonged. I'm trying not to be afraid of that." She hit save, closed the lid, and whispered to the dark, "Please let this last." If you enjoyed this video, comment 1 to let me know. If not, comment 2. Your thought mattered to me either way. The office buzzed louder than usual. Atlas Tech was hosting a partner orientation that morning. New vendors, fresh partnerships, faces from out of state. The kind of event that made the building feel like a hotel lobby. Jenna wore a blazer for the first time in weeks. Leanne paced more than usual. barking last-minute orders and adjusting flower arrangements that were already perfect. Claire was at her desk by 7:45, going through checklist items with surgical focus. Her hair was pulled into a clean twist, a soft beige blouse tucked neatly into her charcoal slacks. She had even worn the good flats, the ones with the gold trim she'd found at a consignment shop for $5. They made her feel like she almost belonged. At 8:12 a.m., Leanne appeared at her desk. There are folders for each vendor on the reception table. I need you to double-check that everything is sorted by segment: tech, logistics, marketing. Understood? Claire nodded. Already done. I added color-coded stickers to match the badges. Leanne blinked. That wasn't requested. I thought it might help streamline handoffs. Leanne didn't respond. She just turned and walked away. Claire exhaled, glancing at the small sticky note on her monitor. A doodle from Rosie, a bunny with a star on its belly. It reminded her why she kept breathing through moments like that. The elevator dinged. People began to arrive. Claire stayed busy, quiet, helpful, invisible where she needed to be, until everything shifted. At 9:03 a.m., Claire was refilling the coffee station when she heard a sharp voice cut through the hum. "Excuse me, someone left this in the wrong pile." She turned to see a vendor holding one of the folders' purple sticker, not green. Leanne stepped in instantly. "We'll fix it." That was likely a clerical misfile. The vendor handed over the folder and walked off. Leanne's eyes scanned the table, then landed on Claire. "Did you do this?" she asked. Claire stepped forward. "I may have labeled them based on team function, but I double-checked the vendor directory. Clearly not well enough." Claire opened her mouth, then closed it. "I can correct it. You'll need to correct the entire batch. We can't afford disorganization today." Jenna walked by just then, pausing briefly. Her expression tightened. Claire didn't meet her eyes. Claire turned to fix the folders, heart pounding. But as she did, she noticed something. One of the vendor names had been entered twice in the system, once under logistics and once under software. It wasn't her mistake. It was a data duplicate. Still, she said nothing. She just fixed it. By 10:30, everything was back in place. The vendors were seated in the glass conference hall. Claire had retreated to her desk, quietly typing a follow-up report for Leanne. She didn't notice Miles' approach until his shadow fell across her keyboard. He was dressed in a slate blue suit, tie loosened, cup of coffee in hand. "You good?" Claire blinked. "Sir? You're quieter today." She hesitated, just trying not to make waves. Miles tilted his head slightly. "That's not the same as doing good work. I'm trying to do both." He leaned in slightly. "Leanne give you trouble?" Claire gave a faint smile. "She gives standards. That's her job." Miles studied her face. "You didn't mislabel those files." Claire paused. "How would you know that?" "I read the guest list. The error was in the software directory, not yours." Claire looked at him, startled. "I built this place on the idea that people should be seen, not blamed." He straightened, then added quietly, "You don't have to shrink to fit in here." She looked down. "That's not how it feels." Before he could answer, a chime rang from his phone. A calendar alert. "Board prep," he said, then added, "Can I steal 5 minutes of your time later?" Claire nodded slowly. "Of course." He walked away. Claire stared after him, unsure what she felt. At 12:45, the break room filled with chatter as staff took a quick lunch. Claire sat at the corner table with her sandwich, flipping through files while chewing mechanically. Leanne entered, flanked by Carla Benton, board advisor, icy and poised. the kind of woman who made other executives stand straighter when she entered a room. Their conversation was quiet until Carla said, "And the new hire? The one from the lobby scene?" Claire froze. Leanne replied, "Still on trial. She's efficient, but we're watching. She's very eager." Carla sipped her tea. Eager can become entitled. Claire stood slowly, quietly tossing her sandwich in the bin. Jenna caught her arm just outside the door. "You heard?" Claire nodded once. Jenna shook her head. "This place pretends to be merit first, but they love a whisper more than a resume." "I'm not surprised," Claire said. "I'm just tired." Jenna softened. "Hang in, Rosie's watching." That hit hard. Claire turned away, trying to swallow the lump in her throat. Later that afternoon, Miles found her in the supply room. She was restocking pens, head bowed. He closed the door behind him. "I'm sorry about earlier. You weren't supposed to hear that." Claire didn't turn. "I've heard worse. You shouldn't have to." She faced him then. "Why did you ask for 5 minutes?" He stepped closer, not invading, just present. "Because I want to hear your ideas, and not in passing. I want to know what you'd do if this were your department." Claire stared at him. "Don't just survive, Claire," he said. "You've already proven you can. Now I want to see what you can build." She didn't reply, couldn't. He opened the door and walked out. She stood alone for a moment longer, then whispered to the empty room, "I don't know if I believe him," but a small part of her wanted to. Maybe that was enough for today. The rain returned Friday evening, soft but steady, tapping against the rooftop windows of Atlas Tech, like a metronome marking time that no one had left to waste. Claire sat alone in the rooftop lounge, her trial review packet open in front of her. Pages of performance metrics, timelines, and task breakdowns, most of which she'd completed in half the time expected. And still, none of it seemed like enough. The city glowed below, neon reflected in every window, while inside, the lounge was hushed, dim. Just the buzz of the espresso machine and the quiet hum of climate control. She had promised herself she'd leave by 6. It was nearly 7. "I thought I'd find you here." Claire looked up, startled. Miles stood by the glass doors, sleeves rolled to his forearms, his tie gone, jacket folded over one arm. He looked less like the CEO of a multi-million-dollar company and more like someone who had finally let his shoulders drop. "Didn't mean to intrude," he added. "You didn't." He walked toward her, paused at the opposite end of the table. "Review packet?" he asked. Claire nodded, trying to anticipate where I might have fallen short. "Is that how you live?" His voice was quiet. "Always preparing for the fallout?" Claire looked down at the pages. Her voice came low. "It's how I've stayed standing." Miles didn't respond right away. He set his jacket over the chair and sat across from her, folding his hands together. "I've been watching you work," he said. "Not in a creepy way," he added with a dry half-smile. Claire raised a brow. "I mean it," he said. "I see the details. How you stay late but never mention it. How you document things Leanne overlooks. How you take notes in meetings no one asked you to attend." Claire closed the packet slowly. "None of that guarantees permanence." "No," he said, "but it should guarantee respect." The word hit her harder than she expected. He leaned back slightly. "You want to know what I see?" She nodded once. "I see someone who makes other people uncomfortable because you've done more with less, because you don't apologize for showing up, and because people like Leanne have built their confidence on the belief that there's only room for one type of woman at the table." Claire blinked. "And what type am I?" Miles met her eyes. "The one who doesn't flinch." For a long moment, Neither of them spoke. Claire looked down, smoothing the edges of the folder with her fingertips. "I didn't plan on being here," she said quietly. "At Atlas? In Seattle? In tech? In a glass building with catered lunches and badge access?" She paused. "I planned on a house, with a porch. I planned on cooking dinner with my husband while Rosie danced in the kitchen. I planned on finishing my certificate and working admin at a school near our neighborhood." A beat passed, and then a driver didn't see the red light, and all of it disappeared in one phone call. Miles's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Claire's voice grew softer. "I didn't cry the day it happened. I made funeral calls. I arranged childcare. I called the insurance company, but I didn't cry." She folded the folder closed. "It's been 2 years, and I still can't plan more than a week ahead." She looked up at him. "I don't know what I'm doing here. I only know that Rosie deserves better than motel ceilings and reheated noodles, and a mom who keeps whispering almost." Miles nodded slowly. "That's what you're doing here." Claire stared at him. He leaned forward, elbows on the table. "I lost someone too." Claire's breath caught. "My younger brother, Jake, Navy vet, came back different. Tried to rejoin civilian life, but..." He looked away. "I missed the signs. Told myself he just needed time. A few months later, he was gone." Claire's voice cracked. "I'm so sorry." Miles nodded. "It changed me. Made me build something I thought could shelter people from falling through cracks." He smiled bitterly. "Then somewhere along the way, I turned it into a machine that forgot what cracks even looked like." Claire leaned forward. "So why talk to me now?" Miles met her eyes again. "Because you walked into this building with your daughter and your pride, and reminded me that people aren't problems to solve. Their lives were either helping or ignoring." He looked at her longer than necessary. "You made me look again." "Claire." Claire swallowed. Her throat was tight. "I'm not good at being seen," she admitted. "It feels like exposure, like I'll mess it up the second someone thinks I'm worth something." "You haven't. Yet." He tilted his head. "You still think this is temporary?" Claire hesitated. "I don't think I know what permanent feels like anymore." Miles sat back, folding his arms loosely. "I'm not offering permanence. No one can, but I'm offering something better." Claire raised an eyebrow. "Presence," he said, "and that's where it all starts." The rain outside softened to a whisper against the glass. Claire looked down at the bunny sticker on the corner of her folder. Rosie had given it to her that morning. "For luck," she'd said. Now Claire ran her thumb across its edge, slowly. "You think I belong here?" she asked, barely above a whisper. Miles didn't hesitate. "I do." A pause. "And if you forget," he added, "I'll remind you." Claire let the words settle. She looked at him, really looked. The sharp edges, the guarded eyes, the way he didn't rush silence. She exhaled. Then she smiled. Small, honest. "I might need reminding," she said. "Then I'll keep showing up." Neither of them moved. Below them, the city blinked with life, and above it, in that quiet glass room, 2 people sat across a table. No promises, no guarantees, just the beginning of something neither had dared name. Not yet, but maybe soon. The following Monday morning, the office felt colder, not by temperature, but by tone. Claire stepped off the elevator to find Leanne and Carla Benton deep in conversation near the admin bullpen. Their voices dropped the moment Claire passed by. Carla glanced over her shoulder, the faintest curve of disapproval at the corner of her lips. Claire kept walking. She reached her desk, powered on her monitor, and tried to center herself in the rhythm she had built. Morning emails, onboarding packet updates, vendor requests. She clung to structure like it was a lifeline. But something felt off. Jenna appeared 10 minutes later, leaning against the edge of Claire's cubicle, coffee in hand. "You're a popular topic this morning," she said, voice low. Claire looked up. "Why?" Jenna's smile was thin. "Apparently someone saw you and Miles on the rooftop Friday night." Claire blinked. "Nothing happened. I know. But perception is louder than truth here." Claire leaned back in her chair, exhaling slowly. "Let me guess. Leanne?" "She's not subtle," Jenna said. "And Carla's been circling more than usual. It's like she's waiting for a reason." Claire looked down at her keyboard, then back at Jenna. "I didn't ask for any of this. I know that," Jenna said. "But some people don't care how you got noticed, just that you did." Before Claire could respond, Leanne's voice rang out from across the room. "Claire." "My office, now." Claire stood, heart ticking faster than usual. She followed Leanne into her sleek, glass-walled office. Carla was already seated in one of the two guest chairs, a tablet in hand. Claire sat slowly. Leanne remained standing. "There's been some concern," she began, "about the boundaries between staff and executive leadership." Claire's fingers clenched around the armrest. Carla tapped something on her screen. "This company functions on merit, but optics matter. A lot." Claire looked between them. "Are you suggesting I've done something inappropriate?" Leanne offered a tight smile. "We're suggesting you be mindful. That's all." Claire's jaw tensed. "Mindful of what? Being seen? Having a conversation?" Carla's tone was even. "No one's accusing you of anything, Claire. But people talk. And in environments like this, perception can erode credibility." Claire sat straighter. "I'm here to do my job. I've done every task on time. I've gone above and beyond. I've asked for nothing. Except attention," Leanne said, too softly. Claire's breath caught. Carla closed her tablet. "Let's not make this a bigger conversation than it needs to be. Just keep things professional. Keep a respectful distance, for your own benefit." Claire stood, slow and deliberate. "Thank you for your guidance." She walked out without another word. Back at her desk, she opened a blank document, stared at the cursor blinking like a ticking clock. She couldn't focus, not with heat rising in her throat and her chest too tight to breathe. At lunch, she slipped out early and took the stairs up to the rooftop. The lounge was empty. She needed air. She stepped outside, the wind catching the edge of her blouse, brushing against her face like a sigh. The city stretched below, unbothered, unaware. Behind her, the door opened. She didn't turn. "I heard," Miles said quietly. Claire's voice was tight. "Of course you did." He stepped beside her but didn't close the distance. "They're testing you," he said. She crossed her arms. "They're not testing. They're cornering." Silence. Claire looked over at him. "You don't get it. You can stand on a rooftop with anyone you want and no one whispers. I do it once and I'm called entitled." Miles looked at her. Really looked. "You're right." She blinked. "I don't get to say I understand. I haven't walked your road." Claire turned to face him fully now. "Then why are you here?" "Because you matter. And because they're trying to scare you into playing small." Her jaw tightened. "It's working. Don't let it," he said, voice firmer now. "You think I don't see how good you are at this? You're the most grounded person on that floor. You notice everything. You carry the weight others ignore." She swallowed hard. "But if you start hiding now," he continued, "you teach them that their whispering wins." Claire looked away. It's easy to say that when you're not the one they're cornering. Miles stepped closer, but not too close. Then let me stand in the corner with you. Claire's throat tightened. I'm not asking you to fix it, she said. I'm not here to fix anything, he replied. I'm here to remind you that you're not alone. She looked at him again. Even if it costs you something? He didn't flinch, especially then. A beat of silence passed between them, heavy and thick. Claire looked back out at the skyline. This place, she whispered, feels like walking on ice. No matter how careful I am, I'm waiting for the crack. Miles didn't respond right away. Then he said, quietly, then let's build you a bridge. She turned slowly, not because she believed him completely, but because something in his voice, something steady and unflinching, felt like the first brick under her feet. She didn't know where this was going, but for the first time since arriving at Atlas Tech, she didn't feel like she was walking alone. Claire didn't sleep much that night. After putting Rosie to bed, she sat on the floor in the tiny living room with a notebook balanced on her knees, the sound of rain tracing the window pane. The words wouldn't come, not clearly, not completely, just pieces of thoughts, fragments of herself that had been shattered and glued back together too many times to count. At the top of the page, she scribbled, "What does belonging feel like?" She didn't know how to answer. Tuesday morning greeted her with gray skies and a city still dripping from last night's storm. Rosie clung to her waist at the daycare drop-off, little fingers pressing tightly into her blouse. "I don't want you to go today," Rosie mumbled into her stomach. Claire crouched and brushed a damp curl from her daughter's forehead. "Why, baby?" Rosie looked down. "Jude's sick, and it's loud without him." Claire kissed her cheek. "I'll be back before you know it." "But you're always tired," Rosie said softly. Claire's breath caught in her throat. "I'm okay," she whispered. "I'm trying. For you." Rosie nodded and released her grip. Claire stood slowly, watching her daughter walk to the back corner of the classroom, smaller somehow than she had the day before. By the time Claire arrived at Atlas, she had already buried the ache deep beneath her usual armor, polished blouse, perfect posture, practiced smile. But the moment she stepped out of the elevator, something felt different. People were talking, but not in the usual busy hum. This was sharp. Whispers, glances. Claire passed by two junior assistants who quickly went silent. Jenna wasn't at her desk, and Leanne was already waiting. "Claire," she said, crisp and cool. "My office, now." Claire followed, heart dropping into her stomach. Inside the office, Carla Benton sat again, tablet in hand, unreadable expression. Miles was not there. Leanne gestured for her to sit. Claire stayed standing. Carla spoke first. "There's a concern regarding an internal document you accessed yesterday, one not assigned to your clearance level." Claire frowned. "I haven't opened anything unauthorized. You accessed the project drive marked Strategy Phase 4. Leanne cut in. "It's for directors only." Claire blinked. "That file was sent to my task list. It came from Jenna." Carla tapped something on her tablet. "There's no record of a task being assigned to you. It confirms the access originated from your credentials." Claire's mouth opened, then closed. Leanne folded her arms. "We're not accusing you of espionage, Claire, but curiosity in the wrong file at the wrong time can raise flags." Claire felt heat crawl up her neck. "I didn't go looking for it. I was doing what was on my list." Carla's voice remained even. "This may affect your trial period, depending on further review." Claire stepped back as if she'd been struck. She didn't say another word, just turned and walked out. Jenna appeared minutes later, face pale. "Claire, did you assign me that task or not?" Claire asked, voice trembling. Jenna hesitated. Claire's heart dropped further. "Leanne came by while I was loading the task list yesterday. She looked over my shoulder. She didn't say anything, but..." Claire stared at her. "I think they used your login to bait you," Jenna whispered. "They've been trying to tighten the rope around you for days." Claire turned away. "You should have warned me. I didn't think they'd..." "Well, they did." Claire grabbed her bag. She didn't go to HR. She didn't go to her desk. She went to the one place in the building where she could breathe. The rooftop. Rain had started again, soft and cold. She walked out into it without hesitation. The drops clung to her blouse, matted her hair, kissed her skin like apologies she didn't want. Behind her, the door opened. Again. She didn't need to look. Miles stepped beside her silently. "Leanne and Carla just left the boardroom," he said. "They're submitting a recommendation that your trial not be extended." Claire didn't speak. "I tried to delay it," he continued. "I didn't know they'd set a trap." She turned her head slowly, rain streaking down her cheeks. "You're the CEO." "I am." "Then why can't you stop this?" Miles's eyes were steady. "Because there are votes. Because I made promises to people who think risk is weakness, and now they see you as both." Claire laughed bitterly. "So I'm just a cautionary tale?" "No." Her voice broke. "Then what am I, Miles?" He stepped closer. "You're the one thing they didn't see coming, and they're scared of what you prove." Claire swallowed hard, blinking against the rain. "And what's that?" "That strength doesn't always look like power suits and silence. Sometimes it looks like a woman holding her daughter's hand in a lobby, refusing to apologize for needing both a paycheck and a place at the table." The words hit her like a second storm. She turned her face away. "I'm tired of fighting to stay in rooms I've earned." Miles hesitated. Then maybe it's time to build a different room." Claire looked at him sharply. "What are you saying?" Miles ran a hand through his damp hair. "There's something I've been thinking about. A side initiative, small, internal at first, for parents, caretakers, anyone whose path to success isn't paved smooth. I've been calling it Roots." Claire's breath caught. "You want me to lead that?" "I want you to help create it." She stared at him, barely breathing. "It's not a job offer yet," he added quickly, "but it's a vision, one I think only someone like you can bring to life." Claire took a step back, trying to ground herself. "I don't know if I trust you," she admitted. Miles nodded. "Then trust the part of yourself that showed up anyway." Rain fell harder now, but neither of them moved. Finally, Claire whispered, "If I do this, it can't be a favor. It has to be real." Miles met her eyes. "Then let's make it real." Something shifted in the silence between them. Not certainty, but maybe, just maybe, possibility. And in that moment, under the weight of sky and scrutiny, Claire felt it. The edge of something new. Not safety, but maybe the start of belonging. The storm had passed, but the sky hadn't cleared. Claire sat in the daycare parking lot the next morning, hands still on the steering wheel, watching Rosie in the rearview mirror as she hummed softly to her stuffed bunny. The tension in Claire's shoulders hadn't loosened since yesterday's rooftop conversation, but the words kept looping through her mind. "Let's make it real." It sounded like hope. And hope always came at a cost. Rosie caught her eyes in the mirror. "Mommy, why aren't we going inside?" Claire smiled gently. "We are, sweet pea. Just thinking." "About the bunnies?" Claire laughed under her breath. "Not this time." She parked, helped Rosie out, and walked her in, exchanging tired smiles with another mother who looked like she hadn't slept either. By the time Claire reached Atlas, her heart was racing not with fear, but with something that felt dangerously close to determination. She passed by the front desk where Leanne stood talking with two men from legal. Neither looked at Claire. She didn't look back. Upstairs, her desk was exactly as she left it. A half-empty coffee mug, a sticky note from Jenna that read, "You're not crazy." No tasks had been assigned to her since the incident. The silence in her inbox was deafening. Jenna appeared with 2 cups in hand. "Truce coffee?" she asked. Claire accepted it without a word. "Carla's still circling," Jenna added quietly. "But the interns say Miles met with HR this morning. That never happens." Claire looked at her. "Why would HR matter now?" Jenna shrugged. "Maybe because he's trying to do something no one else in this building has the nerve to do, stand up for someone without a title." Claire sipped the coffee. It was too strong, but she needed every ounce of it. By noon, Miles still hadn't said anything. No call, no message, no meeting. Claire tried to focus on spreadsheets, on sorting old digital files, on busy work that wouldn't betray how restless she felt inside. Until her name came through the intercom. Claire Howard to the 13th floor, Executive Conference Room B. Her stomach dropped. No one ever called her to the 13th floor, not even for coffee runs. She glanced at Jenna, who raised an eyebrow but said nothing. Claire took the elevator up. Every ding felt like a countdown. When the doors opened, the hallway was quieter than expected. The walls were lined with frosted glass, soft lights, curated artwork. It smelled like cedar and new carpet. She found room B. The door was cracked. Inside, Miles sat at the far end of a long table. No one else was there. He stood when he saw her. "Thanks for coming." Claire stepped in slowly, eyes scanning the room. "Am I being fired in private?" He smiled slightly. "No, sit." She did. He slid a folder across the table. "This is the draft for the Roots Initiative proposal. I want your eyes on it. And your input." Claire opened it cautiously. As she scanned the contents, flexible work arrangements, on-site childcare partnerships, remote pathways for parents returning to the workforce, her throat tightened. "You built this in 3 days?" He leaned forward. "No. I've been sitting on this idea for over a year. I just didn't know who to trust with it." Claire looked up. "Why me?" "Because you've lived every barrier this program's trying to solve, and you've navigated it with more strength and grace than I've seen from people twice your title." She blinked hard. "And the board? I'll fight them if I have to." "You mean they don't know yet?" He smiled. "They will." She hesitated. "You're putting your name on the line for this." "No," he said. "I'm putting yours." That stopped her. He continued, "If this works, we'll bring you on as project director, independent, reporting directly to me." Claire's heart skipped. "That's a leap. So leap with me." She closed the folder slowly. "I don't want to be a symbol," she whispered. "I just want to be real. I want to work. To earn it. Not because I'm a mom. Not because I had a rough start. But because I'm good." Miles nodded. "Then help me show them what good looks like." They held eye contact. Claire broke first. "I'll need time." "You'll have it." "I'll need to ask questions. Challenge parts. Maybe disagree." "God, I hope so." Claire exhaled. "Then, I'm in." He smiled. It wasn't triumphant. It was warm, grounded, like he'd been holding his breath and finally let it go. "Let's get to work," he said. She stood. So did he. As she turned to leave, he said, "One more thing." She looked over her shoulder. "Bring Rosie to the office Friday. There's someone I want her to meet." Claire frowned. "Who?" "You'll see." She narrowed her eyes. "Is this one of those mysterious boss moves?" He chuckled. "Something like that." She shook her head but smiled all the way back to the elevator. The 13th floor didn't feel quite so far away anymore. Back at her desk, she reopened her notebook. She crossed out her earlier question, then wrote something new. Belonging feels like being asked to build something that outlasts you. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough to start believing again. Claire hadn't told Rosie yet. All week, she'd rehearsed how to explain this "bring your daughter to work" moment that was so much more than that. But every time she tried to find the right words, she'd freeze. Not because she didn't want to share, because a small part of her was afraid it would fall apart, that it was too good, too sudden, too much. But Friday morning came anyway, with sun in the sky and a nervous flutter in her chest that no amount of coffee could calm. Rosie held her hand tightly as they stepped into the glass building. "Will there be snacks?" Rosie asked. Claire smiled. "Probably. Is this the place with the orange couches and the big TV?" "Yep," Rosie beamed. "Okay, then I'm brave." Claire squeezed her hand. "You already are." They took the elevator together. Claire had chosen a soft pink cardigan and jeans for Rosie and pulled her own curls into a low twist, letting just a little softness frame her face. She wore simple flats and a navy blouse she'd ironed twice. She needed to feel sharp, seen, ready. The doors opened. Leanne was standing at the front of the bullpen. She did a visible double take at Rosie. Claire held her chin a little higher. "This is Rosie," she said. "She'll be with me for the first hour." Leanne gave a tight-lipped smile. "I wasn't aware of a scheduled visit." "It's been cleared," Claire replied calmly. She didn't need to add by whom. Rosie clutched her bunny tighter but stood straight beside her mother. "Hi." Leanne blinked. "Hello." Claire didn't wait for more. She led Rosie toward her desk. As they passed, several of the younger team members smiled or waved. One intern even whispered, "Is this the bunny sticker girl?" Rosie giggled. Claire settled her into the extra chair beside her desk and handed her a tablet loaded with coloring games and storybooks. Rosie clicked instantly into a world of color and characters, headphones in place. Claire tried to ignore the looks, the side glances, the slight edge of discomfort from those who thought professionalism had only one face. She focused on her work. 20 minutes later, Jenna appeared at her desk with a curious glint in her eyes. "You're being summoned." Claire looked up. "Now?" Jenna nodded. "And bring Rosie." Claire's stomach fluttered. She rose, took Rosie's hand again, and followed the familiar path toward the elevator. This time, her daughter beside her. This time, not alone. The 13th floor felt quieter than usual. They reached the glass doors of Conference Room C, different from before. Claire hesitated, then opened them. Inside stood Miles and an older woman Claire didn't recognize. Her hair was silver and braided down one shoulder, and her posture was regal without being stiff. Her presence filled the room. Miles smiled as Claire and Rosie entered. "Claire, this is Dr. Miriam Ellison." Claire's eyes widened. "As in?" "Yes," Miles nodded. Miriam founded Ellison and Grant. She was the first woman to lead a tech acquisition firm west of the Mississippi. And she's also our board chair emeritus. Miriam stepped forward with a warm smile. "And now, I'm just someone who knows talent when she sees it." Claire blinked. It's a pleasure." Miriam bent slightly toward Rosie. "And who is this beautiful soul?" Rosie grinned. "I'm Rosie, and this is Bunny." Miriam knelt to her level. "Bunny is quite distinguished. I hope he helps you keep the adults in line." Rosie giggled. Claire felt her tension begin to melt. Miles gestured toward the table. "We wanted to share something with you." He handed Claire a new folder, this one heavier. Claire opened it and paused. It wasn't just the Roots initiative. It was a pilot proposal, full budget projection, partnership commitments from local daycare centers, a timeline, and her name, at the top, next to project lead. Claire looked up at him, stunned. "You said you wanted it to be real," he said, "so we made it real. But the board will vote Monday, but Miriam's with us, and 3 more already signaled their support after reviewing your draft." Claire turned to Miriam. "You read my notes?" Miriam nodded. "Every word. I haven't seen this kind of clarity in years. You didn't just make a case, you made a future. One I would have given anything to have when I started." Claire felt her throat tighten. "I don't know what to say." Miles stepped forward. "Say you'll take the lead." She hesitated, looked at Rosie, who was spinning gently in the chair, whispering to Bunny, then back at Miles. "Yes, I'll take it." Miriam's eyes sparkled. "Good. Because the world needs more leaders who remember why they started." Claire took a deep breath. Miles added, "One more thing." He pulled a small box from his briefcase and set it on the table. Claire opened it. Inside was a nameplate. Claire Howard, Director, Roots Initiative. Her hands shook slightly as she touched it. Rosie looked up. "Is that your name?" Claire nodded. "Then you're the boss now?" Claire smiled, tears threatening. "I guess I am." Rosie clapped. "Then we need a party, with cupcakes." Miriam laughed. "I like how this one thinks." Miles met Claire's eyes, quiet, proud, and in that moment, Claire didn't feel like a visitor in someone else's story. She felt like the beginning of a new one that she was finally writing herself. Monday morning arrived with an odd stillness, the kind that sits in your chest before something breaks, either open or apart. Claire stood at her kitchen counter, packing Rosie's lunch with a precision that masked the storm inside her. Bunny rested on the table beside an apple and a juice box. Rosie sat on a stool, swinging her legs and chattering about a new song they'd learned at daycare, but Claire barely heard a word. Her mind was on the vote. The board meeting was scheduled for 9 a.m. Her name, her work, everything she had poured herself into over the past 2 weeks was on the line. Not just a project, a program that could redefine what inclusion really looked like in a place like Atlas. She dropped Rosie off, kissed her twice, and whispered, "Wish me luck." Rosie nodded solemnly. "Big girl luck," Claire smiled, but her heart thundered. The elevator to the 13th floor felt longer today. Every ding crawled. When the doors opened, the hallway was empty, too quiet. The boardroom door was closed, blinds drawn. Claire wasn't invited to the meeting. Not yet. She headed to her desk, where a text from Miles waited. "Hold tight. I'll find you when it's done." Simple, direct, no promises. She opened her laptop but couldn't focus. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, then curled into fists. Jenna walked by, paused, then doubled back. "How are you breathing?" "Not well. I brought a muffin in case of emotional collapse." Claire let out a shaky laugh. They shared a look, two women on the outside of something that might just let one of them in. Around 10:30, the elevator dinged again. This time, Miles stepped out. He was alone. Claire rose as he approached. "Can we talk?" he asked. Her throat closed. "It didn't pass?" He gestured toward the rooftop instead of answering. The wind was gentle today. The city below moved as it always did, impatient, indifferent. But the moment they stepped into the open, Claire felt the shift in the air. Miles turned to face her. "The vote was 6 to 4 inches favor," he said. Claire blinked. "It passed?" He nodded. She exhaled a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. Her legs almost gave beneath her. "But there's more," he added, his voice lower now. Claire tensed. "What?" Leanne stepping down at the end of the quarter. Claire froze. "You're kidding." She framed it as a personal decision, but the board saw what she tried to pull. They don't want to be associated with exclusion, at least, not publicly. Claire couldn't believe it. She'll be reabsorbed into another department, quietly, but she's not your problem anymore. Claire crossed her arms, heart still pounding. And Carla? Still circling. But she's isolated. She backed the wrong horse. Miles looked at her, his expression softer now. "Claire, you changed the conversation, not just with the proposal, with how you walked through this place, even when it tried to crush you." Her eyes welled. "You proved you belong," he said. She looked away, toward the skyline. "I didn't want to prove it. I just wanted a fair shot. I know, that's what makes you dangerous to them." She laughed, then wiped a tear from her cheek. He stepped closer, not too close, just enough for the silence between them to feel intentional. "I wasn't sure how this would go," he admitted, "but somewhere in the middle of all this chaos, you made me believe it could be different." Claire turned to him. "Different how?" He hesitated. Then, quietly, "I've spent most of my career managing images, controlling the narrative. But you reminded me that stories don't have to be clean to be powerful." She tilted her head. "Are you saying I'm messy? I'm saying you're real, and that scares the hell out of this building." She smiled, but something in her shifted. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about impact. Miles looked at her then, not like a boss or a colleague or someone with the power to grant opportunity. He looked at her like a man who saw something he didn't want to miss. "I'd like to take you to dinner," he said, voice soft but steady. Claire's breath caught. "I know this isn't the time for anything complicated, and if it's too soon, say the word. I'll never bring it up again." She studied him, heart beating louder now for a different reason. "I don't want to owe you anything," she said. "You don't. I can't afford to lose everything I just fought for." "Then let's not rush. Let's build something carefully, intentionally, like we built Roots." A pause. Claire looked down, then back at him. "One dinner." He smiled. "One dinner. But if you talk about work," she warned, "I will leave and take the breadbasket with me." He laughed. "Fair, but I get to choose the wine." Claire nodded. He offered his hand. She took it, not for balance, but for what came next. Because for the first time in a long time, Claire wasn't just surviving, she was choosing. Claire sat across from Miles at a small restaurant tucked into the corner of a quiet block in downtown Denver, the kind of place you wouldn't stumble into by accident. It was warm, low-lit, and smelled faintly of thyme and roasted garlic. A single candle flickered between them, casting soft shadows over the untouched breadbasket. She smoothed her napkin over her lap, suddenly more aware of herself than she'd expected. This wasn't the rooftop. This wasn't a meeting. This was personal. Miles leaned back slightly, his jacket draped over the chair behind him. "So, how does it feel being director of something you helped build?" Claire gave a cautious smile, "Like wearing shoes I haven't broken in yet." He laughed quietly. "Give it a week. You'll be sprinting in them." She looked down at her water glass. I keep waiting for the floor to give out, like I'll wake up and someone will say, "Oops, our mistake." Miles was quiet for a moment. "They won't. Not this time." Claire met his eyes. "You sure?" "I am." She nodded slowly, but something about his certainty made her chest ache. She wanted to believe it, she did, but years of holding her breath had trained her lungs not to fill too quickly. The waiter arrived with their entree. Claire barely noticed the plate in front of her. She was focused on how unfamiliar this comfort felt, like being safe in a space she didn't yet know how to trust. Halfway through the meal, after a long stretch of laughter and small stories, Miles leaned forward, suddenly more serious. "I need to tell you something," he said, his voice just above a whisper. Claire's stomach tightened. "Okay, it's about Leanne." Claire's smile faded. Miles continued, "You should know. She wasn't just opposed to the Roots initiative. She saw it as a direct threat to how she moved through this company. She didn't want flexible models. She didn't want visibility for working parents. And she definitely didn't want you succeeding." Claire exhaled slowly. "That much I figured, but what I didn't realize until last night," he said, "is that she'd been trying to block your promotion from the beginning, months ago, before you even interviewed." Claire's brows knit together. "How would she know about me that early?" Miles paused. "She used to be close with someone at your old firm." Claire blinked. "Newbury?" He nodded. "A former exec. When your resume crossed her desk, she tried to shut it down quietly. Said you'd bring disruption, that you were inconvenient." The words sat heavy between them. Claire stared at the flickering candle. "She never even gave me a chance." "She didn't want to," Miles said. "But it didn't matter. You still made it here." Claire's throat tightened, but it explains the whispers, the cold shoulders. "Like I walked in already stamped." Miles leaned in. "You undid her narrative. That's power." Claire didn't speak for a moment. Her fingers traced the edge of her plate. "Why are you telling me this now?" she finally asked. "Because I don't want to build anything with secrets." Her eyes flicked up. "And because I know what it feels like to be the last one to find out the truth." His tone had shifted, something raw hiding underneath it. Claire studied him. "What happened to you?" Miles exhaled, sat back. "A long time ago I backed the wrong person, gave them too much trust, too much space. They used it to cut down people like you, people who asked too many questions. And you didn't stop them?" "I was young, afraid, and I told myself I couldn't afford to lose their support." He paused. "But the truth is, I was complicit." Claire's expression softened. "So now," Miles continued, "I watch, I listen, and when I see someone like you who shows up and doesn't flinch, I know I have to choose differently." Claire sat with that for a moment, letting it settle. "I don't want to be your redemption arc," she said gently. "You're not," he replied. "You're your own damn story. I'm just trying to be worthy of a footnote." They both laughed, but the air between them had changed. Softer, more honest. Claire reached for her glass, then hesitated. "I've been scared this whole time, you know." Miles looked at her. "Of what?" "Of hoping too much, wanting something that doesn't want me back." She took a breath. "Not just the job, all of it. This, you." The candle flickered, and the room around them blurred just slightly, as if the universe was leaning in. "I want you back," he said quietly. Claire closed her eyes for a moment, then opened them. "I don't need saving, Miles." "I know," he said, "but if you let me, I'd still like to stand beside you." That silence, again heavy, but not uncomfortable. She smiled. "Okay," she said. "But next time, I choose the restaurant." Miles grinned. "Deal. As long as you let me pick dessert." She raised her glass. "Two inconvenient women." He lifted his, and the men smart enough to follow them. And just like that, the fear in her chest softened just a little, because maybe the floor wasn't going to fall out. Maybe, finally, it was holding. Claire stepped off the elevator Monday morning with a calm she didn't fully trust. The buzz of Atlas felt different, now brighter, maybe. Or maybe it was just that for once, she wasn't shrinking herself to move through it. She walked past the same front desk, the same glass walls, the same glossy hallways. But this time, people looked up. They nodded. Some even smiled. It wasn't dramatic. It was quieter than that, but it was new. She reached her office, not the shared bullpen desk, and paused in the doorway. Her name was on the frosted glass now. Claire Howard, Director, Roots Initiative. Her heart fluttered. Inside, a fresh notepad sat beside a vase of daisies and a handwritten note from Jenna. "Don't forget where you came from, but never apologize for where you're going." Claire grinned. She sat down, took a slow breath, and opened her laptop. She had meetings back to back, press interest to sort, and 3 internal interviews for her new assistant position, and somehow, all of that seemed manageable. Her phone buzzed. A text from Miles. "Lunch on the rooftop? I'm bringing coffee." And a surprise. Claire typed back, "If it's another spreadsheet, I'm jumping." His reply came fast. "It's better. You'll see." She smiled to herself. The morning flew by in a blur of logistics and pitch decks. The Roots Initiative wasn't just symbolic anymore. It had teeth. The legal team had approved the pilot contracts. HR was on board, and Miriam had scheduled a feature with a national publication next month. It was all real. At noon, Claire took the elevator to the top floor. The door to the rooftop was propped open. Miles stood there, 2 coffees in hand, his tie slightly loosened, and next to him, Rosie. Claire stopped in her tracks. "Surprise," Miles said. Rosie ran to her. "Mommy." Claire crouched and hugged her tight. "What are you doing here, sweet pea?" "Miles picked me up early. He said you were going to be famous and I had to see your big sky place." Claire looked at Miles, her eyes questioning. He raised a hand. "She was already checked out for the day. I just borrowed her a little early." Claire blinked back emotion. "Why?" "Because I wanted her to see what you built, and I wanted you to see it through her eyes." Rosie took Claire's hand and pulled her toward the railing. "Look, Mommy, you can see everything." Claire followed, standing with her daughter at the edge, the whole city sprawling out below them. Rosie pointed. "That's where the buses go, and that's where we get donuts." Miles came up behind them. "And that," he added gently, "is where a woman turned a company on its head just by refusing to apologize for being a mother." Claire looked at him, overwhelmed. "I don't know how to say thank you," she whispered. He shook his head. "You don't owe me that." "I do," she said. "Not because you saved me, but because you believed me." He met her gaze. "Always." Rosie tugged Claire's sleeve. "Can I come to your office forever?" Claire laughed, wiping a tear. "Maybe not forever, but you've definitely earned a key to the snack drawer." Miles grinned. "She already found it." Claire turned to him. "You're really in this with me, huh?" "All the way." She nodded, the weight of it all landing soft instead of heavy. They stood there, the 3 of them, the wind lifting Rosie's curls, the city quiet beneath their shared silence. Claire finally spoke. "It's not perfect, you know, this balance." This life, it still scares me. I know, Miles said, but I'm not scared alone anymore. He reached for her hand. She let him. Then, from behind her, Rosie whispered something to Bunny and held him up to the sky. Claire smiled. "What's he saying?" Rosie replied, solemnly. "He says we're home." Claire closed her eyes and believed it. The following Monday, Claire arrived early. Too early. The office was still dim, just a few emergency lights humming overhead. The quiet usually unsettled her, reminded her of the long days she used to stay late, hoping someone would finally see her effort. But now, it felt different, like walking through the calm before the curtain rises on something you've written yourself. She stopped by the new Roots wing, still half under construction, with the smell of fresh paint in the air. The floor tiles weren't finished, and boxes of ergonomic baby chairs and soft rugs lined the walls. But the vision was coming alive, piece by piece. Every soft corner, every lowered counter, every thoughtful adjustment. This was for someone like her. For all the someones who'd been made to feel like they didn't belong. Claire reached into her tote and pulled out a folded sheet of paper. Rosie had drawn it that weekend, a stick figure version of Claire, standing beside a small child with huge curls and a speech bubble that read, "My mommy builds places." She pinned it to the bulletin board above the reception desk. Let them see who this place was really for. By 8:15, the office was filling in. The usual morning buzz returned: coffee orders, shoe clicks, the subtle background hum of ambition. But now, people nodded to her, paused to say hello, not out of obligation, respect. Jenna stopped by her office with 2 lattes. "I brought backup," she said. Claire raised an eyebrow. "Rough morning?" Jenna sighed. Carla sent a passive-aggressive email about the Roots budget, said it seems unrealistically idealistic. Claire took the cup. Translation: she's not invited to the party. She wants a seat, but she's still pretending she doesn't want one. Claire smirked. Let her squirm a little longer. Jenna leaned against the doorframe. "You've changed, you know." Claire looked up. "How so?" "You used to brace for impact, now you lean in." Claire considered that. I think I finally stopped waiting for permission." Jenna grinned. "Well, it looks good on you." Claire smiled, then checked her watch. "Miles has a call with the press at 9. He's pushing for the Roots story to lead the quarterly newsletter." Jenna's eyes widened. "Front page?" Claire nodded. "Well," Jenna said, pushing off the doorframe, "looks like the era of hiding is officially over." Claire whispered to herself as she turned back to her screen. Good. Just before noon, a calendar ping reminded her. Lunch with Miriam. Claire hadn't expected the board chair emeritus to stay so involved, but Miriam had called her last week and said, simply, "We need to talk while the concrete is still wet." They met at a quiet Italian cafe 2 blocks from the office. Miriam arrived in a powder blue pantsuit, her silver braid tucked neatly over her shoulder, eyes sharp and kind all at once. They sat by the window. "I remember when that building went up," Miriam said, gesturing toward Atlas's headquarters across the street. "I was 29. They told me I could consult but not lead." Claire tilted her head. "What changed?" Miriam smiled. "I stopped asking." Claire nodded slowly. "I'm trying to do that." "You are doing it. But I came today to ask you a harder question." Claire tensed slightly. "Okay." Miriam leaned in. "What happens after you win?" Claire blinked. "What do you mean?" "I mean, what's the plan when the applause fades, when the spotlight turns to someone else?" Miriam's voice stayed calm. "Do you have a mission beyond the milestone?" Claire sat back, caught off guard. Miriam continued. We push for change, we break things open. But if we don't root ourselves in something deeper than recognition, the impact fades. Claire stared at her coffee, then back at the older woman. You're saying I need to lead like I've already proven it? Yes, Miriam said, because the world will always ask you to do it twice. Once for them, once for yourself. The words hit hard. Claire nodded, quiet now. Miriam placed a hand on hers. And don't let love become the thing you think you have to earn last. Claire's eyes flicked up. I saw the look between you and Miles last week, Miriam said. It wasn't just gratitude. Claire tried to respond, but nothing came. You deserve both, Claire. Purpose and joy. Don't make one wait for the other. Claire finally exhaled. Thank you. Don't thank me, Miriam said. Just build something that outlives us both. Later that evening, back in her apartment, Claire sat with Rosie on the couch as the little girl traced shapes with her finger across Bunny's ear. Did you have a good day, Mommy? Claire nodded. I did. Did you boss people? Claire laughed. A little. Did Miles give you more flowers? No, Claire said softly. But he gave me time. Rosie tilted her head. Time for what? To figure out if I'm ready to let him into our story. Rosie paused, then looked back down at Bunny. He's already in it, but you can keep turning the pages slow. Claire blinked. Where do you get this stuff? She whispered. Rosie smiled sleepily. From you. Claire kissed her forehead, held her close, and for the first time in a long time, she realized she wasn't afraid of what came next. She was ready to write it. The buzz inside the Atlas headquarters was different that morning, sharper, less like routine and more like the hum before a storm. Claire felt it the moment she stepped into the lobby. Conversations hushed just slightly as she passed. Emails had started trickling in the night before, cryptic subject lines, vague replies, a kind of polite tension that didn't yet have a name. She entered the elevator with her coffee, heart ticking a little faster than usual. By the time she reached her floor, Thomas was already waiting near her office door, tablet in hand, jaw tight. We need to talk, he said quietly. Claire's stomach dropped. She closed the door behind them. What's going on? Thomas didn't sit. Leanne submitted a formal grievance. She claims the Roots Initiative creates preferential treatment and violates internal equity policies. Claire blinked. What? She's citing budget reallocations, space repurposing, even Miles's time. Says it disproportionately benefits working parents and puts childless employees at a disadvantage. Claire stared at him, stunned. She also accused you of blurring personal and professional boundaries. Said your relationship with Miles compromised objectivity in recent hiring decisions. Claire's breath caught. That's not just petty, that's strategic. She wants a review, possibly a freeze on Roots. Claire sat down slowly, hands folded to keep them from trembling. How many people saw this? Just the executive committee. For now, she looked up at him, but the damage is done. Thomas nodded, guilt in his eyes. It's leverage, Claire. She's trying to force a rollback before Roots becomes policy. Claire stared at the window. She's willing to burn the whole thing down to keep the door closed. A long silence stretched between them. Then Thomas said, I need to ask. Is the personal relationship part true? Claire hesitated, just for a beat. Yes. He didn't flinch, just nodded once. Okay, then we'll need to address it openly, not defensively, transparently. Claire felt the burn behind her eyes but forced it down. You think I should step back? I think if you step back, she wins. Claire looked at him. Then what do? We rally, he said. We call it what it is, a values test. And we make sure the board sees this not as a scandal, but as a shift." He turned to leave but paused. "For what it's worth, Claire, I'd trust you with my own kid's future. You're not the problem here. You're the threat to how things used to be." Later that afternoon, Claire found herself outside Miles' office. She knocked once before pushing the door open. He was on a call but motioned her in, holding up a finger. She waited. When he hung up, she didn't sit. "She filed it," Claire said. He knew what she meant. "I heard," he said quietly. Claire crossed her arms, suddenly too tired to soften anything. "This isn't just about me. She's trying to gut the whole thing." Miles stood. "And she won't succeed." "You sound so sure." "Because I've seen what this program is doing. I've seen parents breathe for the first time in years. I've watched single mothers take their first promotions. And I've watched you hold this company to a higher standard." Claire's voice shook. "She's using us. You and me. The fact that we have something, whatever this is, as proof that I didn't earn any of it." Miles took a step closer. "Then we show them what earned looks like, together." She looked away. "You think that's enough?" "I think if we let her define the story, we've already lost." A silence stretched between them, full of questions neither of them could answer yet. Claire finally said, "Then I need to speak at the next board session. Let me tell them why Roots exists. Let me tell my story before she rewrites it." Miles nodded. Done. That night, back at home, Claire sat on the living room floor while Rosie arranged her stuffed animals into what looked like a very official meeting. "Bunny is the manager," Rosie explained. "Froggy is in HR." Claire chuckled, but something about the arrangement made her throat tighten. "Mommy?" "Yes? Are you sad?" Claire hesitated. "A little." "Did someone hurt your feelings?" Claire smiled softly. "Kind of." Rosie scooted closer, setting Bunny gently in her lap. "When I'm sad, Bunny lets me cry into his ears. You can try it if you want." Claire laughed through a breath. "Thanks, Lovebug." She pulled Rosie into her arms instead and held her a little longer than usual. There were still battles ahead, still politics and power plays and whispered doubts, but there was also this small sacred truth that no one could file a grievance against. She had done something real, and she wasn't done yet. The boardroom was silent, not the kind of silence that hung empty, but the kind that pulsed, expectant, heavy with opinions no one dared say out loud. Claire could feel it settle on her skin as she took her seat at the head of the long glass table, every eye trained on her. Some looked curious, some skeptical. A few, Leanne among them, barely concealed their impatience. Miriam sat across from her, calm and unreadable, pen in hand. Miles was beside her, silent support written in the tension of his shoulders. Claire set her papers down, but didn't open them. She didn't need them. "Before I begin," she said, voice steady but soft, "I want to say something to the room, not as a director, not even as an employee of Atlas." She paused. "I want to speak as a mother." Chairs shifted slightly, brows furrowed. "I was hired here as a temp, a resume lost in 100. I had a baby strapped to me during Zoom interviews and formula spilled on my only blazer. And I spent every hour trying not just to do the job, but to prove I was allowed to keep it." Her gaze scanned the room, landing briefly on Leanne, whose jaw tightened. "I was told by policies, by glances, by silence that bringing my daughter to work was a disruption, an embarrassment, an offense." A breath caught somewhere in the room. Claire let the pause hold. "But I kept showing up, with her hand in mine, with Bunny stuffed in my purse, with one less apology every week." She leaned forward now, just slightly, And what I found once the shame started to quiet down was that there were others like me. Dozens, maybe more. Parents, caregivers, people hiding their lives so they could be seen as professional. People shrinking, hiding. She drew in a breath, steadying herself. So we built Roots, not just for parents, for dignity, for those who've been made to feel like their lives are inconvenient. She nodded toward a slide projected behind her, a collage of images from the pilot floor, kids in reading corners, team meetings with babies sleeping in wraps, employee testimonials handwritten in marker and taped to walls. I've heard the complaints, she said, that it's preferential, that it's disruptive, but I'd argue that making space for humanity isn't favoritism, it's future-proofing. Still silence, still tension, and then a single voice. From Miriam. I've seen many programs pitch purpose, few actually deliver it. She looked around the table, eyes sharp. What Claire has done isn't about childcare. It's about culture. And for a company that claims to be progressive, inclusive, and people first, this isn't just an initiative. It's a mirror. One of the board members, Roderick, leaned forward. But can it scale? Claire met his eyes. It already is. Productivity is up 14% in the pilot team. Retention climbed. New applicants have cited Roots in their decision to choose us over competitors. Roderick leaned back, nodding slightly. Another hand raised, then another. Questions now, not challenges. And Leanne? She didn't speak again. Not a word. But when the vote was taken, it passed, unanimously. Claire stepped out of the boardroom into the hallway, breath coming faster than she realized. Miles was behind her in an instant. They voted, she said, barely above a whisper. They actually voted. He reached for her hand. They didn't just vote, Claire. They saw you. She turned to face him, something swelling in her chest that felt too big for words. I'm scared, she admitted. He smiled gently. That means you still care. Claire looked down at their hands, how naturally his had folded around hers. Can I ask you something? Anything. If this grows, if this becomes national, or global, or something bigger than I can even imagine, will you still be here? Miles stepped closer, the hallway empty around them now. You asked me once if I was in this with you. Claire nodded. I still am. But only if you let me walk beside you, not ahead, not behind. She exhaled and smiled. The next few weeks blurred into motion press releases, internal rollouts, an invitation to speak at a national summit on inclusive workplace design. Jenna started a podcast. Tomas moved into a partner role. And Claire kept showing up with Rosie in tow, Bunny clutched under one arm, a coffee in the other. One morning, Rosie wandered into Claire's office after daycare and tugged at her sleeve. Mommy? Yes, sweet pea. Can Bunny have a job? Claire laughed. What would Bunny do? Rosie thought for a moment. He could sit at the front desk and remind people to be kind. Claire blinked, then nodded. I think that's the most important job of all. So Bunny got his own nameplate, duct-taped under the reception desk, and a tiny spinny chair. Employees started bringing in their own small tokens of comfort photos, toys, little things that reminded them they were whole people, not just titles. And every time Claire saw one, she smiled. One late afternoon, she stood by the glass wall of her office, watching the city glow gold and pink as the sun dipped low. Miles walked in quietly behind her. You okay? He asked. Claire turned. Yeah. I'm just remembering. Remembering what? That first day, when I stood in this building and thought I'm too much of a mess to belong here. He stepped beside her, hands in his pockets. You weren't a mess. You were a storm, and they didn't know how lucky they were to get caught in it. She looked at him, eyes glassy. Thank you. For what? For standing with me before I knew I could stand on my own. He took her hand, and they stood there together, not perfect, not certain, but steady. Outside, the world spun fast, but inside, they had built something that would last. Not just a program, not just a love story, but a legacy.